1 week. This is what it usually takes for the honeymoon phase of a gacha character to end. The day one hype and excitement has now ended, and all the impressive showcases start to dry down. And that's when the question that actually matters pops up. Was the character really worth it? When Shinku was first teased and revealed, the expectations for her couldn't be any higher. I mean, she was the face of patch 1.2. She was a dragon-themed Cosmos DPS, with what I believe to be the greatest animations we have seen so far in NTE. She has insane mobility in the open world. She basically demanded to be your next main carry. If we look at presentation alone, it suggested that she was about to redefine the meta. However, when she released, the conversation changed. Some players called her clunky, others called her the strongest character in the game. It didn't even end there. Tier lists couldn't agree on where she belonged. With 7 days having gone by on global, with 14 days in CN, the dust has settled. Players have optimized their rotations, theory crafters have fleshed out their calculations, speedrunners have discovered tech that probably wasn't even intended by the developers, and for the first time, we can finally have a conversation about her performance that isn't affected by launch week emotions. So today, we will answer the question, was everyone wrong about Shinku? Before Shinku even became playable, the community at large had an idea of who she was supposed to be as a character in the game. I mean, everything screamed premium, and it was only natural that players expected premium performance. I'd say that is a fair expectation. Pull for Shinku, learn a simple rotation, as all damage dealers have, then do big damage to clear endgame, an easy plug-and-play hyper carry. This is actually where the problem lies. This isn't at all how Shinku was designed as a character. For a damage dealer, she was built with a passive that rewards patience in players. Her passive, Menacing Gaze, actually asks players to stop attacking entirely. By not attacking for a period, you build up stacks that can be used up all at once for a burst of damage. This acting as both a damage tool and as a tool to fuel up her rotation. I need you to take a moment and think about how backward that sounds. This is an action game. She is a damage dealer. You're used to damage dealers requiring constant attacks. Shinku just requires the opposite. Wait, then strike. This passive alone was enough to raise alarm bells for many. This alone, though, isn't enough to cause all the Shinku drama we saw. Shinku wasn't designed to reward aggression, she was designed to punish it. Early calculations pointed out just how heavily reliant she was on charge reactions for her to reach her full potential. This meant that her strongest team would be more restricted than the teams we had come to be familiar with. This was a given, as charge is a 3-element reaction and all. However, these concerns were all pre-launch and maybe it turned out better after 1 week. Fast forward 1 week, players have spent more than 100 hours cumulatively testing, and the verdict is surprisingly a nuanced decision. To start things off, damage is not the problem here, execution is. In fact, most discourse about Shinku is not even about her damage anymore. I would even be bold enough to say that nobody serious is arguing that Shinku lacks damage. Instead, the conversation has shifted to basically how the damage is being dealt by Shinku. Surprisingly, that distinction matters. If anything, we have multiple units that can produce incredible damage numbers under similar circumstances. The real question being how consistently she reaches those conditions. This has been the point at which people's opinions have started to become split. Like, she has one of the fastest speedruns in Beyond the Rails, which shows she's not lacking from a damage perspective. But then many argue that after the first rotation, she has a heavy feeling downtime. There's some truth to this too, as Shinku does not gain any ultimate energy during her ultimate. So after the first rotation with her ultimate, you will be forced to go back to gazing at the enemy to build up her ultimate energy before going into the second ultimate. This is where the second complaint about Shinku tends to creep up. The complaint that Shinku is a clunky character. And again, there's some truth to this as well. At Awakening 0, losing menacing gaze stacks by swapping characters really feels like a punishment. This also adds to the pain of her second rotation feeling like it has such a wind-up time, as the rotation is forced to be rigid, where you cannot swipe during the gaze build-up. Now, if you thought I was going to be just negative here, you're wrong. What actually surprised many with Shinku is also how much smoother she feels once you've got some practice down with her. Developers even went the extra mile to improve some of her targeting range and inconsistencies, while also improving charge trigger radius. This paints the picture that many of the criticisms Shinku had were in no way wrong. Shinku wasn't getting hate due to purely damage being bad, but because she felt clunky due to the precision she demanded. That's probably the biggest revelation we have had this week. Let's talk about what everyone really cares about, her damage. If you've watched any Shinku showcase, then you might think she's just a burst DPS. This is not the entire picture. She's actually one of the more complete damage dealers we have in the game. Whether you take a look at single target performance, which is her best area, she particularly shines in boss content, where she doesn't have to focus on multiple units and can use her enhanced skill to snowball the boss. Many would say this is all that matters, as beyond the rails is the current endgame we have in NTE. Her AoE performance is also much stronger than people initially expected. Although her massive laser finisher doesn't deal as much damage as you would expect, the bulk of her damage is found in her enhanced skills and multiple dash attacks while in her rampage mode. Shinku's damage isn't front-loaded into one massive hit. It's spread across an ultimate window that rewards clean execution. Although we can't run away from the fact that she does spread mobs across the area, and this can affect her damage in AoE situations. This has translated to a situation where it's not just the finishing burst that causes her to deal the most damage, but her entire ult duration over specific points where you can use her skill and her dash attacks, which is sort of punished when the mobs are spread across the area. In practice, Shinku has one of the highest damage ceilings currently available, but unlike Lacrimosa, who has a straightforward way of dealing damage, Shinku asks for a little bit more in terms of execution and team formation. That trade-off is what defines the character. You miss any reactions during the build-up and you've lost charged. Her damage will tank. Much more punishing than missing a Blossom or a Scorch. Swap out by accident while building up her menacing gaze stacks and her damage tanks again. Notice how it isn't her damage, but rather it is focused more on the player. If I were to be more specific, the player's skill plays a significant role in whether she feels like a T0 unit. Now we have gotten to the most controversial part of this discussion. Ask 10 different players how it feels to play Shinku, and you'll probably get 10 different answers. Believe it or not, many will argue she is one of the smoothest characters to play in Neverness to Everness. Others will tell you they have never met a more clunky character in NTE's small history. The funny thing about this entire discourse is that neither of them are technically in the wrong. They are both experiencing different versions of the same character, and this has nothing to do with the copies invested in the character. After testing Shinku multiple times, watching countless gameplay clips, and reading multiple theory crafting discussions, I finally understand why this divides many players. The term clunky gets thrown around way too often. Usually when people say a unit is clunky, they are referring to slower animations, responsiveness, maybe poor mobility, or even long recovery frames. When you think about it, these things aren't things that describe Shinku. You could argue about recovery frames, sure, but if the above was the criteria, Shinku wouldn't be classified as clunky. Shinku's animations are fluid. Her movement is crisp, and the gameplay is somewhat effortless when she enters her ultimate form. The real divide is in the effort it takes to get into that state. Normally, in Beyond the Rails, for an example, with other DPS units, an ideal rotation is to enter the stage, use your ultimate, or rotate to other units to set up, then you use your ultimate. With Shinku, the mathematical correct answer is sometimes to enter the battle and to do absolutely nothing. That to me still sounds ridiculous even after 7 days after her launch. Yet it's exactly how her menacing gaze works. Standing still is rewarded. This is one of the reasons players didn't enjoy her gameplay at launch. It is mainly because many weren't playing her correctly. Even if you were playing her correctly, it felt bad to just be standing there. Mechanically, you are not animation cancelling everything. You aren't forced to memorize 20 hit combos. Instead, it is just a matter of being patient and downtime periods, knowing when to wait, when to attack, and when to switch out. This actually answers another question. Is Shinku a difficult character to play? The answer is no. As I've said, she does not have difficult mechanics or rotations. The difficulty is in the waiting. If you don't wait, you are forced to accept that you will build up her cycle and her ultimate through normal attacks, which isn't the most ideal way to go about it. This is exactly why so many launch week players described her as an unforgiving character. At Awakening 0, losing those stacks after swapping felt like a painful punishment. This punishment felt even worse due to Awakenings being available to solve such issues. This made players feel like the devs were selling a solution to a problem they baked into the kit themselves. Most of the complaints about Shinku weren't actually about her damage, they were about her quality of life. I'll admit, she rarely gets interrupted. Personally, I have not been swiped out of the air by an attack due to lacking resistance. However, the fact that the solution to this issue is sold when the problem is baked into a kit made many unhappy with Shinku. This is where the clunky narrative saw an even greater push, as it felt like things were removed from her complete kit and were sold as premium awakenings. It completely changed how players initially approached Shinku and their initial first impressions. Now, here's where Shinku starts to become truly fascinating. As with normal DPS characters, the focus is usually on who buffs Shinku the most. Shinku, on the other hand, asked a different question. Who can feed me charge reactions every second? This distinction really changed team building for her. After 7 days though, her core team has somewhat settled. Zero refuses to leave the meta. His ability to instant cycle dramatically speeds up Shinku's rotation. I have a whole video on why Zero breaks the meta, so you can check that out. Then comes Skier. Initially, many players underestimated him, but now he has become Shinku's strongest partner, especially when equipped with Sakiri's signature arc. He also extends Remora application to comfortably support Shinku's rampage window. Hathor remains an excellent alternative as a premium standard unit. She sacrifices a bit more Remora uptime, but instead provides crit buffs. That was already a demanding team, all things considered. The final teammate sent many spiraling on whether Shinku was really worth all of this investment. Almost nobody expected Nanali to become Shinku's best teammate. After all, Nanali is one of the game's premier on-field hypercarry units. Why would anyone break apart their entire build team just to support another DPS unit? The answer being because internal cooldown does not care about traditional roles. Nanali's Vita Bard timing, aligning perfectly with charged, made it so she was set as her best teammate. More charge meant more enhanced skills, which meant more damage. Nanali dramatically outperformed other more expected sub-DPS options in a Shinku team. This internal cooldown shenanigans brought about a new question in the mind of multiple gamers. Where does Eroy fit in? At this point, there is one character that everyone is looking forward to. While we have no full testing of how she performs alongside Shinku, the community has already started theory crafting. Unlike Nanali, Heroi is poised to provide something different: survivability, and the most important of all being consistency. While we do not know what her passives will do in much detail, as everything is still subject to change, she might end up being the support that benches Nanali in the Shinku team. This would honestly be a win for many. After the first week, Shinku's strengths have become somewhat established. Her burst damage is nothing to slouch at, though her damage is during her ult. It is a true reflection of a burst character that she is. She has an immense payoff in the way of her ult. She is a simple unit to play, although she does require some practice. She uses charge really well through her staking nature, while providing off-field energy to the entire team while also stacking her attack. But hey, not all units are perfect. In fact, all units aren't perfect. On the weaknesses side, quality of life features being locked behind her awakenings are the biggest weakness. The interrupt resistance and retaining stacks being paywalled can feel quite bad. She is also very reliant on charge to meet her full potential. She also ungroups units quite often with her moves. So, would I recommend Shinku? If you're looking for a character you can immediately understand, probably not. If you get frustrated when a character punishes mistakes, again, probably not. However, if you enjoy a character that genuinely rewards practice and build up, then yes. If you want a character that is one of the most satisfying characters Hota has released, absolutely yes. When I started this video, I asked a simple question: was everyone wrong about Shinku? Yes. If you look at the discourse surrounding her at launch, you would think she was actually the worst thing to ever get launched by the NTE devs. Though I will give the initial haters some slack. On CN launch and on the test servers, her arc passive wasn't working as intended. So this probably made her feel way worse than she actually was intended to be. However, if we look at her now, she has established herself as a strong Cosmos DPS that deals incredible damage and is worth all the investment required to get used to her gaze stacking and her burst gameplay. If you've been playing Shinku over the past week, I'd love to hear what you've landed on. Did your opinion change after spending more time with her, or do you still think the launch day impressions were accurate? Let me know in the comments below, and if you're interested in her rotations, check out the video in the end screen, or if you're more interested in a meta discussion of how Zero breaks NTE balance, there's a video in the end screen for you. Until the next time, I will see you in Hetheru.